Now, our Chad Griffin, president of the Human Rights Campaign, Dustin Lance Black, the Academy Award-winning screenwriter of Milk, and Stuart Milk, the nephew of gay rights leader Harvey Milk and the president of the Harvey Milk Foundation. So, Chad, you're out there in front of the Supreme Court today in all of the celebration and noise, and you're in the middle of a group interview with Thomas Roberts here at MSNBC, and your phone rings. What did it say President of the United States on the caller ID?
It actually said blocked, Lawrence, so unfortunately I couldn't get the number to call Air Force One back the next time I'd like to talk to the President. But it's not every day you get a call from the President of the United States aboard Air Force One. But if there's any occasion that warranted it, it was the occasion of this celebration today, the fact that the Supreme Court struck down Proposition 8, and we're here today celebrating what will very soon be the resumption of marriages here in this great state.
Dustin, you were in the Supreme Court room for some of the arguments in these cases. We talked about it then. Did it feel to you back then at the argument stage that this is where we would be today?
Yeah, I always had faith that we were going to be here today. I'm glad it's this soon, and I'm glad this court did it today. I'll tell you what, I stood on this intersection almost 5 years ago and marched with some of these very same people because we were hurt, because our families were injured. And we marched and we made our voices heard and our discontent heard. And we did something very important, Lawrence. We started to tell our personal stories that started to change hearts and minds. And you know what I think? I think those justices heard those stories and knew the time was now.
Stuart Milk, we showed in the opening of our show old footage of your uncle Harvey Milk, and everyone, of course, wishes that he could have been standing on the Supreme Court steps today, but it has been a long march that started even before his activism to get to the Supreme Court steps today.
It has been a long march, and so many people have continued carrying my uncle's banner. You know, San Francisco is just alive tonight with celebration and the message that we as a community are so much better, including everyone. This has been a turning point for not only the rights of LGBT people, but it's a green light to every community that's marginalized and diminished that justice can move forward.
And here, I just want to read part of Justice Kennedy's opinion, the majority opinion on the Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA. DOMA instructs all federal officials, and indeed all persons with whom same-sex couples interact, including their own children, that their marriage is less worthy than the marriages of others. The federal statute is invalid for no legitimate purpose, overcomes the purpose and effect to disparage and to injure those whom the state, by its marriage laws, sought to protect in personhood and dignity. Chad, that seems like a very broad statement that could be applied to the states at this point.
There's no question, Lawrence, and you read part of Justice Kennedy's brilliance. The prose that he read from the bench today and what's in that document, every American should read. Because it's very clear. I believe it also gives us a roadmap to go forward. And while we're all celebrating tonight here in California, and Edie and her brilliant attorney, Robbie Kaplan, in New York City, and everywhere in between, we also have to acknowledge that people all across this country didn't feel the reach of justice today. That young person in Altoona, Pennsylvania that Harvey Milk talked about in the 1970s, and that young person in Hope, Arkansas, where I was born and where much of my family still is, didn't feel the reach of justice today. So what we've all got to do, and I know that Stuart's committed and Lance is committed and the Human Rights Campaign and all of our colleagues across the movement are committed to fighting like we've never fought before to ensure full equality reaches every single person. And we committed today a new goal that within 5 years we'll bring marriage equality to every single state, all 50 states in this country.
Lance, the big population centers, California, New York, these states have marriage equality, but speak to what Chad just mentioned, and that is the reach into the more distant areas on this. You didn't grow up in one of those big population centers, New York,
no.
California, where those rights are now easily obtained. Tell us what it's like to be growing up gay in Utah, places like that, where the impact hasn't been felt yet.
I grew up in a Mormon home, in a military home out in San Antonio, Texas, and so did my big brother. My big brother is the reason 5 years ago I started to make my efforts federal. My big brother, while I was making milk, came out to me. But my big brother lived in Virginia. So as I was fighting in California, I was so proud of the work we were doing, but all of a sudden I had a wake-up call that said if we don't take this to the federal government, my own big brother will never enjoy equality the way I hope to. My big gay brother. And sadly, Lawrence, my big brother didn't make it to today. My big brother passed away. He lost his fight with cancer, and he'll never see this day of freedom. But you know what? Even if he had made it here, he lived in a state that doesn't have it today. And what we have to do is to do what we've done in the big cities, but we have to do it in the more conservative areas, in the South. We have to reach out and tell our stories. We have to be brave in these areas, because some of these areas people can still lose their jobs and their homes for being LGBT and open about it, but we have to be brave. We have to tell our stories. It is the only way that we can break down the myths and the lies and the stereotypes that have been told for generations about gay and lesbian people at the pulpit, by our government, and sometimes within our own families. And when those go away, we'll have equality in all areas.
Stuart, your uncle Harvey Milk had some real victories, especially at the local level in San Francisco, but he was one who always knew, even on victory night, that there was more work to do tomorrow.
Absolutely. And just as you heard, we've got 37 states that do not recognize marriage equality. But we have whole countries, and we actually have whole continents that don't. And so one of the things that I absolutely believe my uncle would be saying now is that we've got to have this message of hope that tonight is being celebrated in Lake Iola in Orlando. It's being celebrated by my friends, believe it or not, in Provincia, Chile. It's being celebrated by binational couples who were forced out of our country in Budapest, Hungary. But the message is that we still have this work to do. So we have the celebration of hope, but with that comes a commitment, as you just heard Chad said, as you heard Dustin say, we have to have this commitment to take this to the next level. This is really the civil rights defining moment of our time, but we've got a lot of work to do. And the thing that I'm most proudest, and I think my uncle would be so thrilled with, is all the people that have taken my uncle's mantle of being out, being authentic, and living a life that is challenging, as Lance just said. You know, it is challenging in some conservative places to come out and be who you are, but that is what is really changing the dynamics, not just in the United States, but across the world.
Chad Griffin, Dustin Lance Black, and Stuart Milk, thank you all for joining me tonight. And Chad, don't ever turn off that cell phone.
I will never turn off that phone or ignore a call.
Right, okay. Thank you, guys.